Merry Me, Annie here. This video is in response to a couple of conversations that came up this week. And they had a lot in common, and they caused me to stop and think, because some of it was outside of my experience. What was presented to me was questions regarding where does a seeker go to come to an understanding of a comprehensive flow of the story of the gods throughout the Wiccan wheel of the year. They were looking for advice on a specific book or books or websites that might provide that kind of continuity of story. I'd never really stopped to think about whether there was something like that out there. The story of the gods has a beautiful continuity to me in the way I follow the wheel of the year. But I didn't get it out of a book or websites. Those things really didn't exist at the time I was first learning. I thought back in time to how that story was created with those I first practiced with. In a way, we wove our own stories with an understanding of what the cycles in nature and the cycles of the psyche meant in relation to our gods. What meaning would they hold to us? What would they teach us? How would they inspire us? And how were they being truly who they were through each turning of the wheel? I turn to the books that I do have. I actually don't have many books now. After the move, I gave up almost all of my books. Lack of space. But I turned to the books that I do have, and really the only one I found that gave more or less a consistent story was the Farrar's book, 8 Sabbats for Witches. The only website I could really recommend was that of Mike Nichols, The Witches' Sabbats, and indeed the book that came out of that. I've never read the book, but I've loved that website since the very beginning. I wouldn't necessarily say he offers a consistent story of a god and a goddess throughout the turning of the year, but I think he does an excellent job in bringing together and making a flow, an emotional and a logical flow from season to season. That's about all I could offer in the way of books and websites, and in fact I asked seekers in our program if they could recommend any themselves, because so many of them are actually better read than I am, because they have learned from books and websites. But here's what I wanted to share, because it's what I shared from my own perspective on this turning of the wheel and the god and the goddess of the Wicca within that. What it is for me is a very specific story of two specific entities. However, the power in it, the goddess of the 1,000 names and the god of 1,000 names, is when I find any story, any bit of mythology, any poem, anything I read in a book that inspires me, no matter the god nor the goddess that it represents, if it fits into the passion and the emotion and the meaning of the season for me, I can make powerful use of it within my rituals. It doesn't matter the name of the god or the goddess. I'm not appropriating their specific worship. I'm appropriating what they represent at that emotional, spiritual, energetic level in the stories about them. But I do have a very specific storyline that I follow regarding the gods, beginning in Samhain and ending as the wheel turns again to Samhain. I shared that with this seeker. And after our conversation, I asked if it was okay, if they thought it was all right that I share this from what I wrote then with my YouTube audience, because what I came to discover in our conversations is there are a lot of seekers who are looking for consistency in the story of our gods. Here is what it became for me. And if I appear to be looking down, it's because I have that email in front of me, and I'll probably be reading a lot of it for you. From Samhain to Yule. Goddess and God, separate within their own domains. She ruling the darkness of the world, and he ruling the darkness of the underworld. Yule to Imbolc. Goddess as virgin and mother. God as that which is birthed. Except for Yule proper, I don't envision the god as a child, although powerfully I see him as the child of hope at the solstice. My vision of him after that is of the green man, running up free and independent through his world. As parents, we understand how I see this energy. She births him, but she releases him to his life. Imbolc to Ostara, goddess as maiden, experiencing her own form of freedom within the world, seeing it through the eyes of wonder and having no responsibility to another. Diana, like the god as the god of the wildwood, coming into his maturity and his personal strength, very much as the goddess in this turning of the wheel. It's not about others. It's about the maturation of the individual. Ostara to Beltane, goddess as she who gathers, gathering together community and becoming responsible for it, aligning with the human tribe, knowing the role that she plays within it. God as the stag, coming to the peak of his powers, the roar in the forest, the clash of antlers. Mr. Macho, that's how I see him then. Beltane to Midsummer, the goddess as queen, full-blown in her role as the one who loves and takes care of us, even if through tough love. The god as her consort. He stepped out of the forest and into the community, and he has promised to stand by her and her people. Midsummer to Lammas, the goddess as consort, just as the god became her consort when he accepted her call to join him. She understands at this point what she is in relation to him. And the god I see at this point as the king, fully present to his responsibilities to her, to others, and to the world. Lammas to Mabon. The goddess says she who grieves as she takes the life of her king. She knew from the start this had to happen, that he must die in order for the earth to be reborn. The god as the sacrifice. He knew he would die when he accepted her offer to join him at Beltane. He knew what he had to do and why he had to do it. He gives his life out of love for her and the land. Mabon to Samhain, the goddess as she who must descend to be with her king, to prove her love for him even beyond death. She journeys to the underworld to be with him. The legend of the descent. She cannot birth him anew if she doesn't visit him in the world he returns to with each turning of the year. The god I see then as the absolute sovereign in the world he returns to between his rebirths. This is the story I give them. Various gods may dance their way through my celebrations, representing the aspects that each turning of the wheel present to me in the way of the god and the goddess of the Wicca. I think the story of our gods, so those two specific gods, it's out there in bits and pieces, sometimes in various mythologies from various places and times. For example, the Descent is the story of Inanna in Dumuzi. The sacrifice can be seen in the story of Isis and Osiris. Rather than seeing the source of these parts of my story as disjointed and full of many gods and goddesses, I see it in the connection to humans having understood the importance of these seasonal tides and having matched the stories of their gods to them. It feels one and the same to me. I feel part of that, one with history, connected to 1,000 gods and 1,000 goddesses, even as I honor to the god and the goddess of the Wicca. To me, it's all about the story through the turning of the year and the many ways I find to fill in some details, to inspire me differently, to challenge me to think in relation to this story that I have created. I'd love your input on this, and in fact, the people that I am in correspondence with about this subject are looking to this video for your comments and for your video responses. This is one, like so many of the things that we share here on YouTube in the pagan community, where our varying perspectives become part of that story. It's a story we all appreciate and we all want to sit at each other's feet and listen to. Tell us your story, if you will, in comments below or in a video response. I wish you all mirth and reverence. Merry part.